Good morning, I'm Robert Tan. From your wallet to the wider economy, join us as we follow the money. Filipinos work hard for a better life, whether here at home or overseas. But for many, that hard work still does not always lead to financial security. Today, we follow the money behind income, remittances, debt, savings, and long-term wealth. And joining us this morning is Vince Rapisura. He's a financial educator and social entrepreneur who has spent years helping Filipinos, especially OFWs and workers, understand real-world money management. Good morning, Vince, and welcome to Follow the Money.
Good morning, Robert, and thank you for having me in your show.
Okay, Vince, let's start with this. We've been told at an early age, work hard and you'll succeed for decades. But why does that story feel less true for Filipinos today?
Yeah, well, Robert, hard work is still very important, but I think hard work is no longer enough. No? The situation right now, if you take a look at the typical Filipino household, they're forced in getting two jobs or getting side hustles just to make ends meet. No, it's not that many Filipinos are actually running faster, no, to adapt with the times. But unfortunately, as they run faster, the treadmill is also running faster. No, it's like the currents are turning against them. And if you add also the external side of it, no, we have the climate crisis, disasters, and black swan events. You know, these things cannot be solved by hard work alone. No, it's not. It could not be solved by the family unit or an individual. It has to be something of the community, and the government really plays a very important role as well.
Now, having said that, if we look right now, the crisis that we're experiencing, the rising prices, rising housing costs, and stagnant wages, you mentioned, if hard work is no longer enough, what needs to be done right now? What will, let's say, complement hard work today as we go and find our journey to a reliable path towards wealth building?
You know, I love that question, Robert. No, you know, hard work is still very important. It's a very important ingredient, but the cost of living is really rising faster than the rewards of hard work. No, and so. No matter how hard the Filipino family would, as we say in Filipino, no, maghigpit ng sinturon, the reality is the income that's being generated is really not enough to cover even the most basic needs of the family. So how do we address this? No? We have to go beyond what the family or the individual can do, because in my opinion, as a social entrepreneur, the Filipinos have already hit the limit in doing hard work. We've already done all the things that we do that we can to be able to earn money. So how can this be solved? It has to be a systemic approach. No, unfortunately, we see that corruption is actually being rewarded and hardly punished. So that's one thing that the government can do: reduce, if not eliminate, corruption and use that budget for basic social services. No, and also, as I mentioned a while ago, hard work alone cannot address the externalities we face, like calamities and sickness. So basic social safety nets from the government, universal health care, actually for us also universal disaster insurance is also very important, because that's very much in our reality. No, we're in the World Disaster Index. We are number 2, number 3, or number 1. No matter what the year is. No, so all of these realities, this should be taken into account in the government's approach in uplifting the lives of every Filipino.
Now, looking at that reality that you've mentioned, if we look at inward, let's say our personal behaviors, what is the most common financial struggle among the majority of the Filipino working class that no one really talks about honestly?
Yeah. Well, for me, there's two things. No, so the one is the more important one is the bigger fear of the Filipino family of getting illness. No, because what we've seen in one study is that the middle class is actually just one illness away from being poor, and it can actually erase decades of hard work. No. Like for example, I have a colleague who has just his daughter has gotten meningitis, and the bill from the hospital has already reached 10 million pesos. So how can a regular Filipino afford that? It's very difficult. No. The other one is that we're living in a very consumerist society. We're pushed to consume, and in this consumption, what's being pushed is the way to fund that is to get loans or to use our credit cards. So these are things that I think the Filipino household can take a look at. Focus more, sana, no, on coming up with their emergency savings, while the government, I think we have to also emphasize that the government should also play its role in providing the basic social safety.
Well,
Safety
you
nets.
mentioned the government's role. Now, when we're saying that a family is one sickness away from actually their whole savings could be obliterated. So, what does it say about the kind of support that we're getting, not only in the public sector but also in the private sector, with regards to how we can balance and not have that as a fear?
Yeah. So actually, we're already being taxed, no, to build the coffers of our universal health care, no. Unfortunately, the fund that the government gets from it is not yet enough, and the government is also not allocating enough for that, no. If I may, I'm in Spain right now, Robert, and if I may, a lot of families here, employees, and even entrepreneurs, they feel safe in taking the risk of going into business because they know that when they fall sick, the government healthcare will be there to support them. So they don't need to dip into their emergency funds. They don't need to dip into the capital they put up into the business or sell assets just to survive. And that's the community approach in terms of living a better life, and that's where I think our taxes should go. There should be more efficiency in using those.
Now, there's a lot of discussions and talk about financial literacy, or maybe the lack of it that we have here in the country. But when you talk about financial literacy, is it overrated, or is the bigger issue a lack of income, a lack of opportunity, and the economic mobility and stability that we have in the country?
Yeah, of course, I'm a financial literacy advocate,
Yes.
Robert. No, so I think financial literacy is a very good foundation. But again, as I said a while ago, no, it's the way out of poverty and to improving the lives of typical Filipino is not just the burden of the individual or the family. The role of society and government is very important. For example, you know what to do in terms of saving, budgeting, and I think Filipinos know that, no. But there's really lack of employment generation, so people don't have the opportunity to earn income. And again, as I mentioned a while ago, sickness, calamities, these are all externalities that the individual is helpless, not to do it alone. The government should really step in providing this foundational social safety nets for us to flourish.
Now, if we look at technology as well, Vince, and social media, it has created a generation today that constantly compares itself to others. Now, is comparison becoming a bigger financial risk than bad investments? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Robert, when I teach financial literacy, what I usually say, especially to overseas Filipino workers, because they have already income, no? I tell them comparison is the thief of joy, no? Because it creates pressure, unrealistic aspirations, and goals, no? And what I've observed also, comparison may lead to envy that may result to risk-taking behaviors. That's why I see a lot of our they get trapped or they get scammed into get rich quick schemes that usually are not good, no. So it's better for us to think inwards and really think about what makes us happy rather than comparing ourselves with other people.
What needs to happen, Vince, when we're talking about trying in social media, people comparing themselves, and some when they post, they have to post that they have this designer bag, the keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
Is that a fault of behavior, the characteristics that we have here as a country?
No, I think that's not about it. No. It's actually more a function of algorithm, Robert, than our own volition. No, we are fed all of this information because the algorithm is not working for us. But the way to combat that, for me, for example, what I tell them, instead of looking at what others have, think critically. How did this person get that thing or get that asset? And now we see, like before the nepo babies, when they were posting and flaunting their wealth, tapos we were naiinggit and we were envious, and then we found out, oh, this is really actually corruption money, so we should be disgusted by this. So we have to go that way. Think of how they got the money, and perhaps if it's a good way, then we can copy that. And then the critical thinking is really important.
Okay, Vince, we still have much to discuss about, again, financial literacy and how it could help a lot of people here. But we'll continue our conversation with Vince Rapisura after this break. Keep following the money. Welcome back to Follow the Money. You're still tuned in to our conversation with Vince Rapisura, SEDP co-founder and Ateneo lecturer. Now, Vince, what part of the Philippine financial system today is quietly working against people trying to save, trying to invest, and buy their own first home?
Yeah. Okay. Robert, first, I'd like to recognize the government programs. No? So in fairness naman to SSS, Pag-ibig, and PhilHealth, I think they're, as institutions, they're doing the best they can to deliver. SSS for retirement, I have yet to see a private pension that would beat what the returns that SSS could give. No? But of course, admittedly, we know that these are not enough. Pag-ibig also provides very good and better interest rates into owning a home. And PhilHealth, much is yet to be desired from PhilHealth, but we see that there's improvements, in providing health care. But what are these? In terms of the financial system, what's failing us? For me, it's false advertising. Financial institutions, I think, are promoting getting loans more than saving and investing. I get text messages from financial institutions every time. Vince, ikaskas ang credit card to fulfill your dream travel, no? Yeah. And there's also, in terms of advertising also, too much consumerism is pushed, and the messaging is really always on fear of missing out. Unfortunately, this is what's happening right now.
But is the government doing enough? And also, if we look at the private sector, when it comes to loans, let's say housing loans, car loans, and personal loans, it's quite hard for the average working class to borrow at a bank, which is why there's a lot of loan apps that are out there right now, online loans, but have much, much higher interest rates. But then it's easier for them to take out that loan. Now, is that causing a lot of danger because all these loans have high interest rates, but easy to get?
Yes, of course. I think that's the difficult part of it. Now, for example, the government has, particularly in housing, for example, even in SSS, Pag-ibig for housing and SSS for income loans. No, they're there. The interest rates are very competitive and very low, but they are difficult to access. In contrast, you have these loan apps, as you mentioned. They are easy to access, but very high in interest rates. So I think that's where financial literacy plays a role. But also, I think there's a role for government to regulate all of these loan apps and implement and execute the good laws that we have and regulations, so that this unjust practices could be stopped.
What are your thoughts about the argument that financial literacy can only do so much, but then if the system works against you, it doesn't really help? So how can we strike that balance?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Robert. No, as ako, my tagline really is ang pagyaman na pag-aaralan at napagtutulungan. No, wealth could be learned, but the system should also be there. The enabling environment should also be there to help us out. No, it's not just about the expense side, but also in the income generation side. No, employment opportunities, better. Business environment for entrepreneurs, and on the other side, cushioning us for the big expenses, sickness and disasters. For me, it's unfair to put that burden just to the family or the individual. Since we pay taxes, we
Yes.
should demand the government to provide this
The
basic
services,
social
yes.
safety nets for us. Yes.
Now, Vince, follow the money for us. When a typical Filipino earns income, where does that money actually go before anything is saved or invested?
Yeah. So when I took a look at the family income and expense survey of the Philippine Statistics Authority, what I've seen there is much is really spent on food, and I think that's 40%, and 30% is transportation and housing. So very little is really left, if any, for savings and investments. No, that's the sad reality, and that's because the income side is not enough to cover the expenses. So it's not that Filipinos do not know how to save or invest; they just have very little to do so.
Yes, not enough.
Yeah, not enough. Pero even with the little that we have, we still teach them, no, with our financial literacy advocacy, to set aside savings, kahit maliit, even a small amount, will go a long way in the long run.
Is that also one of the reasons why there's a lot of side hustles and that's been, the gig economy? Not one job is enough for a family today.
Yes, no, that's what's really happening. And if you take a look at the well-being of Filipinos right now, many are reporting that they are overworked and working long hours, and yet, as we mentioned, no, hard work that they're
Yes.
putting in is not translating into income that could cover their basic needs.
I mentioned that because for decades, parents told their children to become doctors, lawyers, and engineers. But today, many young people want to become creators. Now, is that progress or a warning sign?
So for me, this is a very, very bad warning sign, no? Because the content economy, the chance of success there is extremely low. Especially before, you can earn quite a good living, no, with content creation. But now the algorithm is not really pushing authentic content. It is like also before, no, in our generation, siguro, Robert, it's like being the pag-aartista is the way to success. But we know that
Lahat sila gusto sumikat, ganun ba?
Oo.
But that does
Yeah.
translate na gusto nilang sumikat at kumikita rin.
Yes, oo. Pero unfortunately, it's really, really very difficult, no? So what we need to do is to create an environment where being quote unquote regular is promoted. And in the Scandinavian countries, they what they teach the youth is, you're not special. And what does that mean, no? That means that all the work that we do, the hard work that we do, it contributes to our economic development. And therefore, if you take a look at that, no, the professional athletes in Scandinavian countries, the professionals, the doctors, and the baker and the driver, the income gap is not very large. Unlike for us, no, for them, I think a teacher and the doctor earns 2 to 2.5 times higher than the teacher. But for us here in the Philippines, it's I think 10 times, 15 times higher.
But
So
if
the
we look
gap
at the
is
But if we look at the popularity now, everybody, lahat na sa social media, everybody may TikTok na, may Facebook, may YouTube. Now, has the attention economy now, has it created more opportunities for wealth building, or illusion lang ba to?
Yeah, it's unfortunately more illusion of wealth, no? It creates unrealistic aspirations because we have mistaken attention as value, no? As being of value. What we should put back is value to work and demand value from the government. Because as I mentioned a while ago, we pay our taxes. So
Yes.
that should be given back to us as in the form of social services.
Now, if nothing changes over the next decade, Vince, what will the financial future of Filipinos look like?
Yeah. I've always known that Filipinos are resilient, no? And we are not failing ourselves. Talagang masipag tayo at madiskarte. What we need is for the government to step up the game to create economic opportunities for us, give employment, and create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. And that's the way for us to live a good life.
I want to continue yung line of thought mo, yung madiskarte tayo at masipag tayo or hardworking. Enough ba yan? Is that enough? What else do you teach in your financial literacy courses or seminars that, you know, diskarte and hard work can only get you this far? What else needs to happen? Especially today.
So there's 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 4 Ks. It's kakayahan, kaalaman, kakilala is also very important. And so we all should have all of this, and that translates to hard work, no? So that when the last K, which is kapalaran or luck comes in, no, the opportunities would come in. We would be able to take advantage. Yeah, we would be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So it's not that opportunities are not there. We really have to prepare ourselves to take advantage of those opportunities when they come.
Yeah. That's good advice. Before we let you go, Vince, we'll go to our rapid fire round. Just answer yes or no. You don't need to explain your answer. Let's start with this. Can hard work still beat connections in the Philippines? Yes or no?
No.
Is home ownership becoming unattainable for many Filipinos? Yes or no?
Unfortunately, no.
Is social media making people financially unhappy?
Yes.
Is attention becoming more valuable than education? Yes or no?
Yes, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Are Filipinos worse off financially today than the previous generation? Yes or no?
Marginally, no.
Gitna lang. Okay. Finally, Vince, if everything we've discussed today comes down to one lesson for a young Filipino trying to build a better future, what would you tell them? How can they follow the money? And how do you follow the money?
Yes. So for me, it's continue good hard work, and we do that by what I always say, no, ang pagyaman, na pag-aaralan natin yan at napagtutulungan.
Okay. Thank you very much on that note, Vince. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for your insights and the advice for those watching this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all for today. I'm Robert San. Thanks for watching. Keep it here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. And always follow the money.